In Ecuador, indigenous movements say they will rally against the National Electoral Council's decision to suspend the vote recount agreement between candidates Guillermo Lasso and Yacu Perez. This Tuesday, different countries around the world are experiencing stronger winter weather conditions, with heavy snow and blizzards closing down highways and disrupting power. And within the framework of the G5 summit, Chadian President Idris Deby Itno announced the deployment of over 1,000 troops to the three-border zone to fight jihadists. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is From the South. Ecuador's indigenous movements will protest against the suspension of the vote recount agreement between candidates Guillermo Lasso and Yacu Perez. Ecuador's leader, Carlos Susuk Añay, said that starting on Wednesday, they will march to Quito to defend what they say democracy. The indigenous leaders also criticized Guillermo Lasso's stance for breaking the vote recount agreement he reached with the Pachacuti candidate Yacu Perez. In this sense, Carlos stated that several indigenous movements and the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador will continue to rally until the National Electoral Council completes the recount in Guayas province and 16 other regions of Ecuador. The plenary of Ecuador's National Electoral Council suspended the session scheduled for this Monday to define the instructions for the recount of votes in 17 provinces as requested by the presidential candidate of the Pachacutic indigenous movement, Yacu Perez. The Electoral Council President, Diana Tamaint, had indicated that the process would be reviewed with the candidate and his technicians. Tamaint commissioned the Director of Electoral Processes, Lucy Pombosa, to prepare a proposal. This document will be key to learning how the recount of 50% of the votes in the corresponding provinces will be carried out. Meanwhile, Perez and his rival Guillermo Lasso, who narrowly beat him to take on Andrés Arauz in the second round, have not yet agreed on the recount process and have both submitted different requests for the Electoral Council. Supporters of Perez, who continue to insist that electoral fraud prevented him from winning second place in the first round, have threatened to march to the capital, Quito. And continuing in Ecuador, the Union for Hope Coalition's presidential candidate Andrés Arauz reiterated his rejection of the smear campaign against him by international media outlets. Arauz stressed that this misinformation campaign against him is supported by the government of President Lenín Moreno. The Union for Hope candidate said the move intends to prevent his participation in the second round of the presidential election scheduled for April 11th. He denied the accusations attempting to associate him with the Colombian National Liberation Army guerrilla. Moving on to Colombia now, cargo transport unions began strike action this Monday in at least 8 departments of the country to reject the increase in toll cost. Union representatives warned that the 300% increase in the cost of over 100 road tolls affects the operating costs and the competitiveness of the transportation industry. Despite negotiations with the government of Iván Duque, national authorities claim they have no influence over departmental and municipal tolls. However, the sector ministry committed itself to liaising with regional governments and truckers in order to promote positive communication between both parties.
I am accompanying the march of the teachers from the regions who've come here to Bogota. What Decree 882 has caused is a labour massacre of all the regions of 12 departments.
Teachers from different regions of Colombia arrived this Monday in the capital, Bogota, to mobilize in defense of their right to work. At the same time as mobilizations by truck drivers, more than 500 substitute teachers marched in the streets of the Colombian capital to denounce the cancellation of their contracts. The teachers described the situation as a labor massacre. They are demanding that the right to work be respected at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic is aggravating the economic crisis in the country. This Monday, the Haitian people took to the streets in rejection of the government of Jovenel Moïse and to demand the end to his presidency. Hundreds of citizens took to the main streets and avenues of the country to demand President Moïse's resignation, whose constitutional term in office concluded on February 7th. The Sunday saw protests turn violent, with police repression leaving at least one dead and several wounded. The government currently has the backing of the United Nations, the Organization of American States, the European Union, and the Caribbean community. Therefore, Haitians are asking for the solidarity of governments across the region to advance in their struggle and recover their sovereignty. The coordinator of the Haitian Democratic Committee in Argentina, Henry Bois-Rolling, assured that the current government of Haiti receives orders from foreign powers and organizations, which in his opinion violates the sovereignty and the integrity of the country.
The real government there is the government formed by the co-group. The co-group is a group of ambassadors, of diplomats, representatives of the United Nations Secretariat, the OAS, the European Union, ambassadors of the United States, of Brazil, of Spain, of France and Canada. They are the ones who pass orders to the current self-willed puppet, their servant, Mr. Jovenel Moïse.
Henry Bois-Rolling also called on the peoples of the region to stand in solidarity with Haiti and its struggle in defense of sovereignty.
We need the solidarity of our brothers and sisters, especially of the region, and solidarity that is not based on alms, on an attitude of charity, but real solidarity, understanding that the real struggle, the heart of the crisis, the struggle that is developing now, is a struggle for the recovery of our sovereignty, of our right to self-determination. It is a struggle for liberation, or to build a new society.
The wake of former Argentinian President Carlos Menem, who passed away on Sunday, concluded at the National Congress this Monday. His body was taken to the Islamic cemetery of San Justo for burial. Public access to view the former president's casket was extended until 3 p.m. local time. Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner accompanied Menem's family and friends. A military band was set to honor him at the cemetery. The government declared 3 days of national mourning following the death of the former head of state. Environment Canada said a snowfall warning remained for Toronto and much of New York region until after 7 a.m. and a winter storm warning was in effect for Halton, Hamilton and Niagara. Meteorologists said Toronto would see up to further 4 centimeters of snow this Tuesday. The accumulation has already prompted school boards in Peel, York, Halton and Durham regions to cancel buses or stop classes entirely. Police officials said they responded to 100 vehicles crashes in the past 24 hours and were aware of the 12 active scenes on GTA highways. The TTC warned that all express bus services was cancelled and streetcar lines would see major delays throughout this morning due to the snowfall. And also in the U.S., cities along the Great Lakes are dealing with heavy snow and freezing cold sparked by a winter storm that is sending temperatures plunging across the southern plains and prompted a power emergency in Texas. The National Weather Service says the high was expected to reach 12 degrees. Chicago is warning residents that 20 to 30 centimeters of snow was expected through Tuesday. The National Weather Service says more snow could accumulate in western Ohio, eastern Indiana, and northern Kentucky this week. On Monday, the Mexican Federal Electricity Commission attributed the blackout that affected several northern states of the country to the suspension of natural gas supply from Texas, the U.S., due to a drop in temperatures.
There is a blackout in Nuevo León, Coahuila, Tamaulipas, and Chihuahua. It is due to the winter storm. Because of the bad weather, the technicians of the Federal Commission of Electricity are already working, and we will be informing in the course of the day so that the services are restored. It is reported that 400,000 users are affected.
According to Mexico's Federal Electricity Commission, providing an update on the power outages across the north of the country this Monday, over 4.7 million users in 6 states were affected. The states of Nuevo León and Chihuahua were the most impacted by the blackout, with 96.89% and 86.58% of users left without electricity service, respectively. On Tuesday, heavy snowfall blanketed central Athens. Health authorities announced they were postponing all appointments for coronavirus vaccinations across the greater Athens regions of Attica for Tuesday. One line of the Athens subway that runs partially above ground to the northern suburbs was halted, while most urban buses were withdrawn from the capital streets for safety reasons. Snowplows and salt trucks were cleaning the avenues of central Athens in an effort to keep them open to traffic. Snow is common in Greece's mountains and in the north of the country as well, but much of the rarer in the capital, particularly heavy snow. Parts of Athens experienced electricity cuts from downed power lines, which authorities say were working to restore. Heavy snow and blizzards have also forced the closures of a highway in northwest Turkey, leading to a massive queue of vehicles. The road between the city of Balıkesir and the town of Susurluk has been closed since Monday evening. Around 600 people, a 9-kilometer stretch of the snow-covered road. Some 800 further vehicles were stranded in other areas. Local authorities distributed food to those stranded. And in Russia, since the night of February 12th, Moscow has been witnessing rapid snowfalls, a situation that has not occurred since 1973, with snow levels reaching up to 60 centimeters, just 1 centimeter short of a historical record. Moscow authorities already informed the public that a full cleanup would take around 8 days. Local authorities have mobilized over 70,000 people and 14,000 machines to clear snow on roads. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the UK is aiming for a cautious but irreversible plan to exit its coronavirus lockdown. Meanwhile, the first batch of travelers to the country entered and enforced an expansive new hotel quarantine regime.
Today, the national vaccination programme continues to power past the target we set 6 weeks ago, with more than 15 million people vaccinated across the UK. And once again, I pay tribute to the astonishing efforts of everybody involved. The GPs, the nurses, the volunteers, the army, and the pharmacists like Hardik Desai. And next week I'll be setting out a roadmap saying as much as we possibly can about the route to normality, even though some things are very uncertain. Because we want this lockdown to be the last, and we want progress to be cautious, but also irreversible.
In the Netherlands, a court ordered the government on Tuesday to end the curfew it imposed last month to curb the spread of the coronavirus. In a written statement, the Hague District Court called the curfew a far-reaching violation of the right to freedom of movement and privacy that also indirectly curtails the rights of freedom of assembly and demonstration. The government extended last week the 9 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. curfew into March, using a law allowing it to bypass the usual legislative process in emergencies. However, the court said the introduction of the curfew did not require the use of the fast-track process as it had been discussed at length during the coronavirus crisis. The country's Justice Ministry said it was studying the ruling.
The curfew measure is based on a law intended for super urgent cases, for example, a dike breach. In cases where the government cannot first consult with Parliament to draft a law, it has even debated with the House of Representatives, so then that no longer relates to super urgency case. The judges have considered that there is a pandemic, that there is a virus that also mutates, placing great pressure on the healthcare system. It is a time of great concern and difficult decisions, but also drastic measures such as the curfew, they must be based on good law.
The Japanese health minister said medical staff on the front line of the country's hospitals will be the first to receive the coronavirus vaccine when vaccinations begin on Wednesday.
Starting tomorrow, the vaccination of medical staff will start. While getting the system properly ready, this time medical institutions go first, and after that, healthcare professionals, elderly people. At that time, while each local government has a solid system in place, it means that people with underlying illnesses and who are engaged in nursing care facilities and such, and then the general public. It is important to properly provide information about side effects. If you don't provide such information, as if there are no side effects, even a slight side effect, people will worry about it. It is important for the public, the understanding that information on side effects that should be provided. I think this is the most important thing.
On the sidelines of the G5 Sahel Summit being held in the capital of Chad, host President Idriss Déby Itno announced the deployment of 1,200 soldiers to the so-called three-border zone between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to fight terrorism. The defense ministers of the G5 Sahel, made up of Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, and Burkina Faso, visited Ngungumi in Niger near the border with Chad on Monday, where soldiers who will be sent to the Free Borders region are currently stationed. The deployment of a Chadian army contingent to the area had already been announced on several occasions but had never been carried out. The two-day summit, first between the G5 Sahel and France and then with other international partners, is taking place 1 year after the summit held in Pau in the southwest of France, which resulted in a military reinforcement in the three-border zone and the sending of another 600 French soldiers, bringing the number of French troops in the area to over 5,000. And the leaders of the 6 sub-Saharan countries and France gathered in Chad on Monday for the opening of the two-day G5 Sahel Summit. The group comprises of Burkina Faso, Chad, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, and Mali. Meeting in Chad's capital, the summit leaders aimed to focus their talks on the war against terrorism. They were also set to discuss ways of combating the coronavirus pandemic and boosting the region's economy. The summit was opened by President Idriss Déby Itno of Chad, the incoming holder of the group's rotating presidency. French President Emmanuel Macron took part via a video conference from Paris.
As we all know, the success of the fight against terrorism is strongly linked to the development actions. Misery and precariousness feed the breeding ground for terrorism and violent radicalism. This pandemic has strongly compromised the immense sacrifice made in the field of the security and development in our Sahelian space. This is why we must transcend ourselves to conjure up the evils, overcome the problems that beset us. The population of the Sahel that live every day under the threat of war and terrorist attack expect from all of us pragmatic actions to improve the security situation on the ground.
The Palestinian Authority accused Israel on Monday of holding up the delivery of COVID-19 vaccines into the occupied Gaza Strip, where Palestinians have yet to receive any doses. The Palestinian Authority tried to send 2,000 doses of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine from the occupied West Bank to Gaza on Monday, but Israel stopped the shipment at a West Bank checkpoint and informed the Palestinians there was no approval to continue to Gaza. The body charged with approving the transfer is Israel's National Security Council, part of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Palestinian officials say they submitted the transfer request to Israeli defense authorities soon after receiving an initial shipment of the 10,000 Russian doses in the West Bank on February 4th. Health Minister Mai Al-Kaila stressed that the doses were for medical staff working in intensive care wards designated for COVID-19 patients and for staff working in emergency departments, but the Israeli occupation authorities prevented their entry. Palestinians and right groups have accused Israel of ignoring its duties as an occupying power by not including the Palestinian populations of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip in its inoculation program. On Tuesday, Iranian and Russian forces began a joint naval exercise in the northern Indian Ocean aimed at boosting security of maritime trade in the region. Units from Iran's Navy and the Revolutionary Guards Navy will take part in the exercise dubbed Iran-Russia Maritime Security Belt 2021. The maneuvers will take place in an area of around 17,000 square kilometers. This is the second joint Russia-Iran exercise since 2019, when the two nations plus China held a 4-day event. Tehran has been seeking to step up military cooperation with Beijing and Moscow and tensions with the U.S. Visits to Iran by Russian and Chinese naval representatives have also increased in recent years.
For this exercise, an area of 17,000 square kilometers in the northern part of the Indian Ocean has been chosen. The goal of this drill is exchanging information and enhancing skills in the field of naval rescue, telecommunication and operational exercises, as well as command and control exercises.
A civilian contractor was and others injured after rockets struck outside the international airport of Erbil, the capital of Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region, on Monday evening, according to a spokesman for the United States-led coalition. Iraqi and Western security sources reported that at least 3 rockets were fired in the direction of the city's airport, near where foreign troops are based as part of an international alliance supposedly fighting the Islamic State. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. The airport was reportedly shut down and flights were halted for safety issues. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For teleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.